Hey guys, today we're going to be taking this Traxxas Sledge for its first big bash on 6S. I'm really excited to do that. I got this thing from Tiny Adventures RC. If you want to get one of these, I'm going to put a link to their website in the description where you can pick one of these up. Really good guys to work with, check them out. Now before we take this thing out, there's a few things we need to go over. Some of them are things I do to all RC cars, and a few of them are specific to this car. First thing I did to get prepared was I reinforced the body. Now, this body actually is protected pretty well with this full-length cage, so it didn't need a ton of reinforcement in my opinion, but I did go ahead and reinforce here at the front. I used Gorilla Tape. You can use Gorilla Tape or you can use drywall tape and shoe goo. Either one should work. Drywall tape and shoe goo is probably going to be more durable, but Gorilla Tape's easier. I went with Gorilla Tape on this one. The reason I reinforced the front is because this front here is unsupported and that's probably going to get quite a bit of wear. I also did it up under here because the shock towers are going to impact here and it'll probably wear there as well. Now, I reinforced the back just a little bit. I thought these corners might be a little bit exposed, so I went ahead and put some tape right there. And then the rest of it down the middle is all protected with the cage, so I think that's going to be protected pretty well. Putting this aside, the next thing I did with this particular vehicle is I went ahead and swapped out the Traxxas clamp system for some Velcro straps. Now I did this because I'm going to be running my own single 6S battery on this truck. I don't have Traxxas batteries, and this will allow me to run that battery. Now, you don't necessarily need to do this, but I think it's a good thing to do. I do have a video about this. I'll put a link to it down in the description. The next thing I did was I went ahead and took these tires and I sealed the holes on the inside of the wheels, and then I vented the tires around the outside perimeter. Doing this helps debris and moisture sling out of the tire as opposed to getting stuck in the tire. I think as long as it's not a belted tire, you should be doing this to all of your tires. I got a video for that as well. I'll put that down in the description too. Moving on to specific things that should be done with this truck. The first thing I did was I went ahead and took the grub screw out of the pinion and I put a little bit of red Loctite on it and then I put it back in. Made sure everything was aligned and made sure it was tight. From the factory, the Loctite on this grub screw isn't the best. Now you don't necessarily have to use red Loctite. Blue Loctite will work as well. I use red Loctite and I find it works great. It can be a little bit difficult to remove, but as long as you have good tools and maybe a little bit of heat, it's not a problem. I then went ahead and pulled the differentials out of here. Just checked the fluid inside, made sure it was full. Mine were good. Some people have reported that theirs isn't, but it's worthwhile to check. After that, I went through the whole car and just made sure that all the screws were tight. I gave a visual inspection of most of them. These ones that are screws and nuts here in the front and rear, I gave them a good tighten. A few of them were a little bit loose, so it's always worthwhile to go and check all your screws on the truck. You also want to check your mesh between your spur and your pinion. And if it's not set properly, there are 4 screws underneath here. You can loosen those, move the position of the motor, then tighten those back up. Also make sure there's some Loctite on those screws and that they're good and snug. Don't go too tight because they're tightening into this aluminum mount and you could strip them out. But you also don't want them too loose because this motor could shift on you. The final thing, and one of the most important things for this truck, is to check on the back here, the rear dog bones. They're supposed to come with O-rings from the factory in the outdrive cups from the differential. A lot of them, if not all of them so far, have not come with them. If you don't have those O-rings back there, the dog bone can shift and actually pop out, causing damage or loss of the dog bone or both, which isn't a great thing. Now the O-rings are really simple. You can either contact Traxxas if you didn't get them. I have an assortment of O-rings. I chose these 5/16 O-rings. I actually put 2 of them stacked up next to each other in the diff cup. For me, that seemed like it was the best option. Depending on how thick your O-rings are, you may or may not need to use 2. You may only need to use 1. Just check and see how much play you have in the dog bone when it's at rest right here. You want to have a little bit of play with the O-rings in, but not too much, so that at full compression, the dog bone won't pop out. All right, that's pretty much all we have for pre-flight checks. Let's go ahead and get a battery in this bad boy, take it out, bash it, and see how durable it is and see how fun it is. All right, well, all in all, I think that was a pretty successful first bash. Learned quite a bit about this truck. First, let's take a look at the body. Everything held up pretty well on the body. As you saw in the video, this front end did get pushed up under this bumper. Unfortunately, that's just gonna happen with this design. From what I've seen, you can cut this piece out here, which will help, but this is still gonna get pushed in pretty regularly, I'd imagine. Then we've also got some damage here where the shock towers have hit the body and tried to push through. With Gorilla Tape in here, that's gonna slow it down, but based on the damage I see here, if you don't do some reinforcement here, you're gonna have holes in this body pretty quickly right here. The rest of the body held up just great, kind of like I expected it to. Now on the rest of the truck, I don't think I damaged anything. I checked it over and everything is still tight and where it's supposed to be, no issues. That being said, I'm still getting used to the truck, so that wasn't the hardest bash in the world. I did do some intentional crashes just to see how it would hold up to those. I did some unintentional ones as well, and so far everything's holding up great. Flipping it over, you can see that chassis looks really good. It is still nice and flat. It's got a few scrapes and scratches on it, a few strange marks right here, but other than that, I think it's holding up really well. The one biggest issue I found with this truck driving it was this servo. Servo's got plenty of power, but it is slow, and I mean slow. It's been a while since I've gotten a servo on a truck that was so slow that it actually negatively impacted my driving. This servo is that slow. I'll be replacing it immediately. Other than that, everything held up great. I'm pretty happy with it. I think as long as you do those things we talked about in the beginning, you're gonna have a great time with this truck. Anyway, guys, really appreciate you watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Drop a comment if you have any comments or questions, and we'll see you in the next one.